This is the last weekly update for the next 4 weeks, recorded in Germany. The next ones I will be sent directly from California, USA. And hopefully, I will also be able to give you some insights into the wine industry, the alcohol-free industry, the beer industry of California and of the United States of America. This week's focus is on the Olympics, on everything that is related with marketing when it comes to brands entering the space using the Olympics as their stage. And we talk about the development of alcohol-free beer brands and the alcohol-free beer production in Germany. Have fun with the weekly update. Welcome to the Pinot and Pixel podcast episode number 180. It's Saturday, the 3rd of August, and the first week of the Olympics is behind us. And the Olympics is also the topic that kept us busy this week, not only when it comes to sports, but also when it comes to marketing. But before we dive into this specific topic, I always want to stay positive on that podcast, but sometimes we have to deal with bad news. And there is 3. I just want to summarize them in maybe 1 or 2 minutes in the beginning, just to keep you updated, but don't want to go too much into depth. First of all, the wildfires in California keep on going. Unfortunately, the firefighters weren't able to control the wildfires in California. And in addition, we also had some wildfires in Central Europe. Priorat was hit by a huge wildfire that burned 17 hectares in total. And this at least has already stopped. This has already passed by, but unfortunately we lost 17 hectares in the area of Priorat. And thirdly, there was a company in Bordeaux that has been filed for letting vineyard workers work under really bad conditions, letting them work longer than usually accepted with fees that were below the average, and they have been filed to pay money. When it comes to vineyard workers, it's a tough business, and especially when it comes to harvest, when it comes to green harvest, there's not often enough people available to do the work. So of course, sometimes you might struggle with getting more resources and people have to work more, but at least I should ask them, I should pay them enough. And of course, I also have to respect the working laws in general. This company in Bordeaux didn't do that, so it is good that they were taken to court. Some other issues have been happening in Australia. We talked about Pernod Ricard, the sale of their whole wine section, the whole wine category, and one brand that was affected was Jacob's Creek. And the workers of Jacob's Creek set for strike action because they are concerned about their future. They actually don't know what will happen with their brand, with their company, with their work, with their occupation, and they went on strike. The impact on the company, especially on the brand of Jacob's Creek, is not clear yet, and some of them are really afraid of losing their jobs. Pernod Ricard hasn't made any statement on that because it was just, when was the release date? 2 weeks ago or so, and I guess Jacob's Creek won't be the last company to struggle with strikes, with workers that are uncertain of their future. They will have to deal with strikes like that. And the good thing is at the moment in Australia, it's winter and they don't have to deal with problems during the harvest. But we will talk about France in a second, where they just started harvest. Can you imagine when brands in the Northern Hemisphere go on strike with all the workers during the harvest? Then it gets even worse. And this was an unplanned but perfect transition to the next topic. The region of Fitou in the south of France just started their harvest. The 30th of July was the first day when the harvest started. And if you're thinking right now, damn, July 30th, why is that so early? The main reason is, of course, we have climate change. We have all the effects on wine growing and viticulture. In addition, sometimes you have to harvest that early, hoping that the grapes are already ripe, because you have varieties that should produce a low alcohol, highly aromatic wine. And in that case, it's Muscat. Muscat Petit Grain is the variety that should be harvested quite early to keep the fresh aromas and to result in a wine that is between 9 and 10 alcohol in total. And this is basically a French article, and if somebody's watching, I will switch it to English. There were two companies that started, and usually they are the first to start. Laurent Menadier is the estate called Chambre des Sœurs, and they started the 13th of July, and usually his neighbor, Jean-Marc Lafage, he's quite famous actually in the industry, usually he starts at July 31st. This is the fourth time in the last 8 years when they already started in July. Usually it's at the beginning of August, but they also come closer and it gets earlier and earlier. And he says he would love to leave it a bit longer on the vines, but then he will struggle with a loss in aromas and a huge jump in the sugar levels, resulting, of course, in higher alcohol levels. But customers, of course, they expect very aromatic, low in alcohol wine in the end. So he has to harvest quite early. Let's see when we will start in the standard regions. So Champagne usually is a big thing, communicated, and Germany as well. Maybe the Pfalz Abaden might be the first this year. We'll let you know. We'll keep you updated. And today's most important topic in France wasn't the early harvest. It's the Olympics. And when it comes to the Olympics, I mean, we will talk about brands and marketing in a second, but the first thing that came in to the press and that was published in the press were people arguing about the lack of alcohol. The British, the Americans, people who are used to drink while attending sports events, arguing that the Olympics don't issue any alcohol. And the reason for that is quite simple. There was a law from in France from, I guess, the early 90s. They said if you have a sports event, you're not allowed to serve alcohol except the fact you have asked for a specific permission. And the problem is the Olympics is not one event. It's, 600 or 700 events. So you should apply for every single event to serve alcohol. And they just didn't want to do that. And of course, in addition, the good thing is the Olympics become more family friendly. People are more kind to each other. It's a more positive atmosphere, less drunken people. You need maybe fewer paramedics. And people try to focus on the sport, or they, just drink normal stuff. But then there is the Americans and the British. And I don't want to play with stereotypes over here. This is just the people that are mentioned in this article. But usually, especially the British and the Americans, they have a very strong relation with alcohol when it comes to sports events. And I just want to give you a quote out of this article. It's an American that was interviewed. He said, "We're not talking about getting hammered. And once you're inside the venue, the atmosphere will be great anyway. It's just that a beer or a glass of wine on the grass right now would be perfect. The lack of alcohol is odd. I think it's a fundamental part of sports." And the interesting thing is, there is wine and beer available, but it's the alcohol-free versions. And maybe there is still this, the barrier in the head saying this is not real beer, this is not real wine. But when it's just about the refreshing moment, the taste, the aromas, and the feeling of, having something in your hand, for example, you could have the exact same experience with an alcohol-free beer. And maybe it's even more refreshing and you don't get dizzy in your head sitting at 34 degrees in a stadium. But yeah, there is this close relation and some people complained about it. But the thing is, the article is also talking about the bad feedback. Generally, the feedback is really positive, saying we have complaints. Also, the people say that serve drinks, but they say the people are more kind to each other. They're friendlier. It's more family friendly. People can bring their children and don't have to think about idiots jumping around and stuff like that. And what is happening then? People drink before attempting the games, and then afterwards they straight go to the pub or to the restaurant and get their drinks if they want to. That's okay. For me, it's a really, really good sign to society saying we don't need the relation of alcohol and sports. And at least as the Olympic Games in general, we don't want to have alcohol over here. Nevertheless, there is many brands in the alcohol industry that use the Olympics as a stage, as a marketing opportunity. And I just checked some brands that work with the Olympics. The first one, of course, when it comes to England, Night Timber, one of the biggest and most well-known brands, most established brands in England. They have a limited release, the Team GB Classic Cuvée. And actually, it's a really nice branding. It's a coated bottle. It has the Union Jack on the bottle. It's sold for £42, so sitting around 45 to 50 bucks, euro, dollar, quite similar at the moment. Quite beautiful bottle, actually. Seeing it through the eyes of sustainability, I don't like coated bottles. I mean, you can just use something different except foil, but it looks like the Union Jack. It's the branding is really beautiful. In my opinion, the gift box could have made it anyway. Nevertheless, Night Timber is the first one to say we support our team with this special edition. Same when it comes to Germany. There is a German house where all the sportsmen and women and the guests can come together, watch the games, be part of the feeling of the Olympics. And the main sponsor is Henkel Freshenet. And they also have a summer Olympics edition, and they celebrated with Henkel Sekt. Henkel Sekt is served in the German house and elsewhere. If you want to enjoy a sparkling drink, then your choice would be Henkel. I don't know if they also serve the alcohol-free version of Henkel. There's one available, but I wasn't able to find any information on that. Nevertheless, Henkel Freshenet, partner of Germany. And then there is the big sponsorship of LVMH. Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, they are the luxury partner, the luxury sponsor of the Olympics. And they not only sponsor, clothes and stuff, they are responsible for the medals, for the coating for the box of the medals. They have designed the fire, what is it called? The holder for the fire, for the Olympic fire. They are everywhere. Then, of course, they also have sponsorships with very famous athletes. Antoine Dupont, Enzo Lefort. Then they have the swimmer Léon Marchand, the gymnast Melanie de Jesus dos Santos, then Timothy Adolphe, some people from the Paralympics, Pauline de Roulette. They know what they are doing. And the interesting thing is that usually I would not relate luxury brands with sports in general, because, the main customer is not the sportsman or woman. Maybe they are the testimonial, they wear the clothes, I don't know, on the red carpet that represent the brand or so. And you won't be able to turn every single fan of a specific sport to a luxury brand holder. Nevertheless, there is access in many areas with, handbags of 150 bucks, or let's take Moet as a drink. The bottle is 40 to 50 euro, and there is also this access to this luxury brand. So it's a really, really good idea to be present as a luxury brand during the Olympics. And this actually is turning the Olympics into, how I would call it, the luxury games, because you see it everywhere. Every single athlete receiving a medal has a part of LVMH in his or her hands. Then you see it during the opening ceremony with the fire that was held by the athletes and designed. The holder was designed by LVMH. And then you have so many sportsmen and women that are representing LVMH as a brand. And this picture is just talking to me. Surfers, basketball players, Victor Wembanyama, soccer player Alex Morgan, the swimmer we already mentioned, Carlos Alcaraz, Osaka, the do tennis with the very famous tennis players. And they all represent the brand. And I don't know if you know Caitlin, the basketball player from the US, from the WNBA, Caitlin Clark. She was wearing a Prada satin blazer and was the first person ever on a basketball draft event wearing luxury clothes and showing this brand partnership. And I mean, this is a stage, a huge stage. There's hundreds of millions of people attempting online or in place those kind of events, and of course they see it, and of course the press is also talking about it. So it's a huge move. Bernard Arnault, he invested $150 million in the whole campaign around the Olympics, and I guess he should be quite confident that this will bring a good push, a positive push to his brand. And what shall I say? This is necessary because LVMH recently has published its quarterly results, and the first half didn't look really good for LVMH, especially when it comes to wine and spirits. The wine and spirits division had a 9% drop in sales, and profits were falling by 26%. And the main reason for that is that champagne is struggling, spirits are struggling. Champagne had a drop of, 20% or so? 20% from 30 million to 25 million bottles. It's a huge drop. And the spirits, cognac is also struggling. The only two sections that were really successful were the rosé brands, Chateau d'Esclans and Chateau Minuty, acquired in 2023, because they had a positive impact. The category has grown in general. People are more drinking more rosé. They're more interested in that kind of stuff. And maybe the access is easier because it's actually a cheaper product. Generally, the result was quite stable for LVMH, but the wine and spirits section really struggled. And they're not the only company struggling. Diageo also published their quarterly results, and they said, especially due to the fact that Johnnie Walker had the first ditch since the pandemic, a sales decline since the start of the pandemic in 2020. The Diageo stock plunged 10% in the beginning, and in the end, it was 5% in total. The main reason for that was the communication of Johnnie Walker, that they had the sales decline. But there is one sector, one division that is growing as hell. It's alcohol-free beer, and mostly responsible for that is Guinness. Not only Guinness in general is growing, Guinness 0.0 is freaking out. I mean, they had a huge increase. They had an overall net beer sales growth of 18% and a decline in spirits of 1%. And Guinness especially was growing a lot in the UK and in Ireland. The most difficult markets for Diageo at the moment is North America and South America. And the main reasons for that are that people are struggling with the consumer environment, that they're more cautious. They don't want to invest so much into products. It's still the result of inflation we had. And it's more difficult even in South America and Latin America, where the economic conditions led to a huge stock of products in Latin America and a loss in margin, unfortunately. Talking about Guinness, this success story is just crazy. I mean, we talked about the investment of 25 million in marketing and in infrastructure and stuff, and this is paying out right now. Guinness leapfrogged Heineken to become the UK's biggest alcohol-free beer. That is super cool. That's super crazy. I mean, Heineken has been the alcohol-free beer over the last, I would say, decade. And right now, Guinness is the beer in the UK and in Ireland. Just to give you some insights, Guinness has surpassed Heineken to claim the title of the beer at the end of March and has maintained its lead since. And the main reasons for that were that, I mean, we talked about that as well. There were some issues. You were not allowed to serve beer during the rugby championship, during some Premier League games, and Guinness jumped into it and said, we will serve our beer. It's alcohol-free, but it's still beer. It has the feeling, it has the look and feel of a beer, and this also contributed to the success of Guinness. And then if you ask the marketing manager, the GB managing director, he says, it's the combination of a beautiful liquid, beautifully served in a nice branded pint glass around the sports viewing occasion. So it's all about branding and marketing, guys, if you're listening to that. And I haven't had the possibility to try to drink Guinness 0.0. I had tried Heineken, I tried Carlsberg. Recently I had Augustina, and hopefully I will be able to drink a glass of Guinness 0.0 next Wednesday. I will be in London for one evening. I will keep you updated. At least when it comes to branding, it's definitely a success, if you ask me. It's the Guinness brand that is recognizable. You can still see it is a Guinness. They have this 0.0 with the blue color that usually shows you this is alcohol-free, or at least it is lighter. It's a beautiful branding. It has the dark color you would expect from a Guinness. This is also quite important, I would say. This also contributed to the fact that Guinness right now is the most famous, the biggest alcohol-free beer in the UK. Talking about alcohol-free beer, there was this article in Just Drinks. Actually, this was the first who published it because it went through the news quite fast. Over the last 10 years, the non-alcoholic beer production in Germany doubled. So talking about numbers, in 2013, it was 267 million liters. And today, it's 556 million liters annually. This sounds a lot, doesn't it? But when it comes to normal beer, in 2023, generally, there were 7.2 billion liters of beer. So this is a 7% share, I would say. What is it, 7%? 8%? I guess it's an 8% share of alcohol-free beer in Germany in total. And the interesting thing is that the alcohol-free beer is on the rise and the normal beer consumption is decreasing. 14% over the last 10 years decrease. And we started with 8.4 billion liters of beer. So this is also a trend recognizable in the beer industry, not only in wine industry. People are drinking less when it comes to beer, when it comes to wine, and the alcohol-free division section is on the rise. The good thing is, if you want to compare the two products, I guess I repeat myself every now and then when it comes to the specific topic, beer is easier to make in a way that it's quite close to the original product when it comes to taste and to the look and feel. With wine, it is a bit more difficult, and there is many beers that can give you almost every feeling that you have when it comes to drinking a beer. It's easy accessible, of course. It's not super sophisticated. Usually, it's just to give you this refreshing feeling in a social environment with people, with friends, with sports probably. And if you're not looking for the booze, this is easier. When it comes to wine, especially when we talk about this enjoyment of wine, talking about the product and analyzing it to depth, then it is more difficult. And recently there has been a discussion on whether it should be allowed to put origin and especially vineyards, or at least villages, villages, on the bottles of alcohol-free wines. And I will do an extra episode on that because it's a really interesting topic. And in my opinion, at the moment, 99% of the wines lose their original identity through the process of dealcoholization. And it's quite tough to even recognize a terroir or something in the final product. I mean, some might be able to identify it as a wine, but definitely not the terroir. My personal opinion, but we would do an extra episode on that. And last but not least, because we're still talking about beer, if you want to drink your beer more mindfully, look at this. There is a brewery in Japan that invented a very, very special beer glass. Basically, it looks like an hourglass, like a sand glass, and it's pint size, so there's 560 milliliters in it. But when you start drinking, I would just hit the play button on this video on YouTube. The link is in the show notes. And when you try to drink it, of course, through this quite narrow space in between the hourglass, the two parts of the hourglass, you're not able to drink very, very fast, even though you try it. So you have to be able to enjoy your beer more mindfully, more relaxed. And actually it looks super cool to drink out of the glass like that. And a colleague recently is being is spending her, I guess it's her holidays in Japan, and I texted her maybe she's able to drink a beer of Yona Brewery in the glass of the Yona Brewery. The Yona Ale is the beer of the Yona Brewery. They're quite close to Nagano in Japan, and they have introduced this special beer glass to the market. Yeah, guys, this was it for the weekly update number 180. Have a great weekend. We see you on Wednesday with the second part of our marketing tips, and the next weekly update will be from the United States of America, recorded during the VCon. Have a great weekend. Ciao, ciao.